Today's notes are going to be on topic 2.0. Now, a relation. A relation is a set of pairs of inputs and output values. A relation can be written as a set of ordered pairs. So you guys know it written as coordinates. Now, a coordinate is a point, an X and a Y. Domain. The domain is the set of input or X coordinates of an ordered pair. These are basically the X values. And a range is a set of outputs or Y coordinates of ordered pairs. Next, we have a function. Now, on a function is a relation in which each element of the domain, which is the X value, is paired with exactly one element of the range, which is the Y values. One of the four sections, this is a quadrant, one of the four sections of the quadrant plane separated by the X-axis and the Y-axis. Okay, so right here, this is going to be our quadrant 1, quadrant 2, quadrant 3, quadrant 4. Going back to here, though, I just want to review this. Every time we say X, X is going to mean the domain. It is also going to be known as the input. Every time we say Y, Y is going to be the range, and it's going to be the output. So keep that in mind. X means domain and input. Y is the range and the output. Now, quadrants, okay? This is going to be known. So this is our X-axis. This is our Y-axis. This is going to be quadrant 1. And we write these with Roman numerals. Now, instead of going clockwise, we actually go counterclockwise. This is going to be quadrant 2. This is quadrant 3. And this is quadrant 4. In quadrant 1, that X is positive, the Y is positive. In quadrant 2, the X is negative, the Y is positive. In quadrant 3, the X is negative, the Y is negative. In quadrant 4, the X is positive, the Y is negative. I'm going to give you guys a list of some points that I want you to graph. And I want you to tell me which quadrant they are in. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's graph point A. Point A is going to be at the point 4, 2. So that means that the X coordinate is 4. So on the X, I'm going to go to 4. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4. The Y coordinate is 2. So 1, 2. That's going to be point A. That is in quadrant 1. So then I want you to put, quadrant 1. So I'm going to give you guys a list of points. And if you guys can go ahead and plot them and then tell me what quadrant they're in. Barely tell us about quadrant. All right. So B is negative 1, 5. C is negative 3, 3. D is 6, negative 2. E is 3, 0. F is 0, 4. G is negative 3, 0. H is going to be 0, negative 5. And I is the point 0, 0. So go ahead and hit pause. Go ahead and plot the points. When you're done plotting the points, hit play. I'm going to go ahead and continue. B, the X value is a negative 1, the Y value is a 5. So the X is a negative 1, the Y is a 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That is in quadrant 2. quadrant 2. C is -3, -1, -2, -3, -1, -2, -3. That's going to be point C, which is in quadrant 3. The next point is X is 6, Y is -2. So X is 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Y is -2, -1, -2. And that is in quadrant 4. Now on this one, X is 3, the Y is 0. So X is 3, 1, 2, 3. And if the Y is 0, it happens to fall not in a quadrant, it's actually on the X axis. So here's point E, and I'm going to put X axis because it doesn't fall in on an exact quadrant. It's between quadrants 1 and 4. And it's on the positive side of the X axis. Next, we have the point 0, 4. So X is 0. So on the X axis, you stay at 0. And then for the Y, you're going to go up to 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. That is going to be point F. And that is on the Y axis, and it's the positive side. X is -3, Y is 0. So on the X, I'm going to go to -3, -1, -2, -3. Y is 0, which means it doesn't go up or down. Now that's going to be on the X axis, but the negative side. On the H, X is 0, so it's not going anywhere on left to right, but the Y is -5, so I got to go down to -5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And this is the Y axis on the negative. Now the point 0, 0. 0, 0 is right in the middle. That is called the origin. That is called the origin. Okay. Next, it's asking for the domain. Now the domain is going to be all of these X values, okay? All of these X values. So I'm only going to look at the X. So let me cover up my Y values. So for the domain here, this is also the input or the X values. You write it with these brackets. It's going to be called in set notation. Now, we're going to put these numbers in order, okay? Whenever you put your set, it's going to want them in order. So right here, the smallest number is going to be the -3. Now, even though there's 2 -3s, we only put that one time. After -3, the only other negative number is -1. And then I see a 0. I don't see a +1. I don't see a +2, but I do see a +3, a +4. I don't see a +5. And then the largest number is 6 there. That is my domain. Now to find the range is going to be the output or the Y values now. So now I'm going to cover up my X's and I'm only looking at my Y's. And I'm going to once again put them in order. So the smallest number here is a -5 right there. -5. I don't see a -4, but I do see a -3 and a -2. So there's -3, -2. I don't see a -1. I do see a 0. I don't see a +1, but I do see a 2, a 4, and a 5. 5 is the largest number. Now, if you want, you can go ahead and write out all the numbers and then put them in order after. You do not write the numbers 2 times though. Like how there was 2 zeros. I only wrote the 0 one time. Is the above relation a function? My answer here is going to be no. The only way it's a function is that a relation in which each element of the domain, which is the X values, is paired with exactly one element of the range. I need you guys to write this. X values cannot repeat. So in this case, look at the x values. I had a -3 and a -3. So right there, because I had this, it's not a function. Basically, it's like you're putting -3 on a vending machine. Can you get two different numbers when you type it in? No, you can't. So right here, I'm going to put no when x equals -3, there are multiple y values. Also, if you look at 0, look, if I type in 0 on a vending machine, can I get product 4? And then if I type in 0, can I get a different product? No, you can't. And when x equals 0, there are multiple y values. So this relation is not a function. Now, the y values can repeat themselves. It's the x that cannot repeat themselves. All right. On here, we are going to graph these points. Now, keep in mind, this is our x-axis. This is our y-axis. Now, when I say domain, domain means x values. All right, I know some of you guys know y equals mx plus b, but let's say we didn't know that right now. We're going to go ahead and we're going to solve this by what's called a t-chart. And in the t-chart, we're going to be plugging in values here. Now, you can pick any x value. X is independent. I'm going to pick a -2. I'm going to pick a -3. Oh, no, sorry, a -1. I'm going to pick a 0, a +1, and a +2. That way I just get the center of the graph. So now what I'm going to do is everywhere I see an x, I'm going to plug in that number. So right here, I'm going to plug in a -2 right there. So this is going to be y equals -2 plus 1. If you type this in the calculator, negative makes that a positive. So you basically just have 2 plus 1. So the answer is going to be 3. X is -2, y is 3. That's that point. Right here, I'm going to plug in a -1. So y equals -1 plus 1. That's going to be a +1 plus 1 is 2. So here x is -1, y is 2. Next, I'm going to plug in a 0. That just goes away. So I'm just left with the number 1. So at x is 0, I'm going to graph the number 1. Y equals -1 plus 1, which that's just going to be a 0. So at x is 1, y is 0, so it just doesn't go anywhere. It's on the x-axis. When I plug in 2, I get y equals negative, and then I'm going to put 2 right here. So that's going to be -2 plus 1, which is -1. Now, a lot of times when you guys graph, make sure you're using some type of straight edge. This is not the answer. I hate when students leave it like that. This is a line, okay? So I do want you guys to extend it all the way, and I'm going to end with some arrowheads telling my reader that it's extending. Now it says, what is the range? The range are all these values right here, okay? These are the ranges. The range is the y values. Those are the range values. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put them in order, which they're actually in order going up. So -1 is first, 0 is second, 1 is next, 2, and then 3. This one is a function because look at your x values. None of the x's repeated themselves. So this one is considered a function. Next example. Once again, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do a t-chart. Y equals 2x minus 3. When it says domain, domain means x values. So those are the numbers that you're plugging in. That's why I plugged those ones into here, because they gave you the domain. So I'm going to plug in a -2. I'm going to plug in a -1. I'm going to plug in a 0, a 1, and a 2. Now keep in mind you're plugging it in right there. So you have y equals 2 times -2, which is -4. -4 minus 3 is -7. So this is my x-axis, this is my y-axis. X is -2, y is -7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Next, I'm going to plug in -1. Y equals 2 times -1 minus 3. That's -2 minus 3, which is a -5. So -1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Next, I'm going to plug in a 0. Y equals 2 times 0, which is 0. So then when you subtract 3, you're just left with -3. So at x is 0, I'm going to go down to -3, -1, -2, -3. Next, I'm going to plug in the number 1. So y equals 2 times 1 minus 3. 2 times 1 is 2, minus 3 is going to be a -1. So at x is 1, y is -1. Last one here, I'm going to plug in the number 2. Y equals 2 times 2 minus 3. 2 times 2 is 4, minus 3 gives me a 1. So at x is 2, y is 1. And once again, I'm going to use my straight edge and I'm going to connect it and extend it. Last part of this is asking for the range. Remember, all of the y values are the range. So my range here, and I'm going to put them in that order because it's actually already in descending order. -7 first, -5, -3, -1, and 1. And once again, this one is a function because none of the x values repeated themselves. And that concludes our notes.